Good morning. I'm excited to be here. I just during the prelude, I just came up with the ending for this morning's sermon. Because I mean, as you've heard me say before, I write these things at my desk, and I kind of follow, my own curiosity and my own thoughts, and that's great. But really, it is when I am on my way here, usually just on the scenic whatever it is along the river, that I turn off the car stereo and I say, now you have 5 minutes. This thing that you've been thinking and researching and writing about this week, what does this have to do with anything? And what does this have to do with the people who you are about to stand in front of? And there's something about being within a mile of this building that I very suddenly, right there on the scenic parkway, I get this very vivid image of standing right here with you all right in front of me. And I kind of see these faces, and it helps me with that. It helps me to think about what does this have to do with anything, and how can I connect this with anything that would be worth saying in front of other people. So now this morning it did not come to me on this parkway, but it did. It came to me right here. I had to get here in order to come up with something. All right. So it was Christmas Eve, and two old guys, Sean and Patrick, were stumbling out of the bar, and they stumbled over to the bus stop bench, and they were just sitting there in a blizzard, and they were freezing. And Sean said, "Patrick, this is it. This is my last moments. I need you to call the rabbi." And Patrick said, "Sean, what is up with you? You have been Roman Catholic since the cradle. You go to church every Sunday. Now, in the last 5 minutes of your life, now you're gonna transition to Judaism?" He said, Whoa. No, of course not. I would just hate to drag the priest out in this weather. Welcome to this place, which we make holy by our presence. Bring your brokenness and bring your power. Bring your fatigue, your early morning aches, and your energy. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, where the human is celebrated, where compassion is strength. Welcome to this place. Together, we make it a holy place. Our first hymn this morning will be "Enter, Rejoice, and Come In."
Today. 'Cause today will be a joyful day. 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 Today will be a joyful
which are printed in your leaflet. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. And now, please join me for our responsive reading, number 616, in the back of the hymnal, number 616. For so the children come, and so they have been coming. Always in the same way they come, born of the seed of man and woman. No angels herald their beginnings, no prophets predict their future courses. No wise men see a star to show where to find the babe that will save humankind. Yet each night that a child is born is a holy night. Fathers and mothers sitting beside their children's cribs feel the glory in the sight of a new beginning. They ask, where and how will this new life end, or will it ever end? Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. I like that. A time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. I like that as we enter the next part of our service, the sharing of joys and concerns. That time when we get to bring and we get to share those special things, or maybe those especially, frightening or disturbing things that are on our mind this week. So I invite you to take a moment in silence to think about if there's something you'd like to share with the congregation. And if you do, please come up and light a candle.
Well, I guess it's sort of a sorrow, but it's kind of for the best, because I think I mentioned last week was on the verge of losing his license, and which is exactly what happened, because I took him to have his road test, and of course that included the written test. I guess he had to sit in the car with this person, and he kind of forgot his papers. I seen him grab them out of the house because he had his medical papers and everything. And was, I don't know what he did. He must have set them down. He got there, he didn't have them. That automatically failed him right there. The lady told me that because she didn't have. But she decided to test him anyways. So she gave him a written test, and that was the part that he failed, and he missed like 11 questions out of, he's allowed to miss 6. But I feel bad for him, but at the same time, he's, it's time for him to get off the road, and, so I got mixed feelings about it. Oh, and the good news is my sister is stepping up to the plate finally, because they have no transportation other than me and her. She lives down there, and I told her that I'm not driving down 2 hours to go to 7-Eleven and grab them a loaf of bread or eggs and to have them up at their house. I go, that's your job now. Oh, my dad is 90. He'll be 91 in January.
So I am a believer in omens, And this morning, when I got out of my car, I looked down on the floor, and there was this penny on the floor. And I looked at the date on the penny, and it's 1979.
Thank you.
No, I think it's a good sign.
Kind of nasty, but I will. In Canada, there are no more pennies, but there are loonies and toonies, and they're just as bad as pennies. So shortly after last Sunday, I opened up my Facebook page, and there was this really, really awful note. Dear friend of mine passed away, and it's not that he actually passed away. It was, to be expected. But they didn't find him for 3 days. And it really struck me awful. And then way back in the day, it says here in 1991, dedicated to my dear friend Patricia Colbeck. It's based on a poem by Charles Baudelaire. And he wrote this for me to sing, and one day I will do it for you if I can find someone that can possibly do the accompaniment. L'amour de maison. This I will treasure forever because Daniel was one of my composition profs.
Here's just a quick note from Computerland that Patty did get back from St. Thomas late last night, so that's why she's not here today, but thankfully she is back. So.
Well, I am going to light a candle for the children who are going to be waiting up for Santa Claus this Christmas. And I hope that they will find something really exciting under the tree. I'm also going to light a candle for those joys and concerns that we are still holding inside today. Now is the time of the offertory where we share our gifts for the work of this church. I was here a couple of weeks ago sharing the story, the Buddhist story. One of the stories about the birth of the Buddha was that he was conceived when this like white spirit elephant just kind of like leapt into the belly of this woman, and that then the Buddha came out 9 months later. And it got me thinking about kind of world elephant folklore. And today I'm going to be sharing some elephant folklore, and I'd like to start with a story that is both mythical and factual. My favorite fable about elephants. At Union Theological Seminary in the city of New York, sometime in the mid-1970s, a classroom full of future priests, ministers, social workers, and well-wishers were having a discussion on the topic of feminism. And a young lady said something like, "So what do we need men for anyway? Except for conception, women can handle everything themselves." And a handsome young guy stood up in the classroom and said, "Well, I've just returned from living in Kenya. And with the African elephant, the guys show up once a year and fertilize the herd, and then the lady elephants handle everything without them. Is that what you have in mind?" And that young lady lifted the heavy stack of theology textbooks and hurled it across the room at this guy who looked a bit like me. And I think you can see where this story is headed. That's how my parents met. My mom was that angry feminist's friend who stayed after class to gather the books and papers off of the floor. And my dad stayed also to help, and their eyes met. And then my sister was born. And unlike the African elephant, my dad stayed around consistently while my siblings and I grew up. And my mom's friend who threw her books that day had a couple of kids with a guy who wandered off like the African elephant, leaving her to handle everything herself as if men did not exist. The moral of that story is that we shouldn't be afraid to discuss feminism in mixed company. That's why God made tables, so we can duck and cover. But even if we have trouble staying dispassionate in the debate, or if someone mansplains the mating cycles of the African elephant, the story can still have a happy ending. My parents live happily ever after in Baltimore and New Mexico, which is as far apart as you can get without leaving the North American continent. But that's still pretty close when you consider that they were born on different continents. My mother is Eastern European, and my dad is not from Kenya. He just went there for a couple of years to get out of the American Midwest. This thing about elephants being matriarchal is true. Elephant herds, like American bison herds, tend to be the female descendants of a grandmother elephant plus all of the offspring. Male elephants live alone or in small bachelor herds and only visit the family when they want something. I don't know if elephants are feminists. I assume the question never even arises in their herds. But I've noticed that we humans tend to have a strong feeling of connection with the elephant. It's an animal we instinctively think that we can learn from. And yet, when we raise elephants in captivity, we insist that they live in isolated Christian nuclear families, a bull, a calf, and whatever offspring they might produce. Of all of the Abrahamic religions, all of the Abrahamic religions agree that this is how a family should be, which is odd because Abraham himself was a total swinger. And yet, it is entirely alien to the elephant. Perhaps this is the reason that the elephants so rarely mate in captivity. Female elephants want to hang out with female elephants. And bull elephants don't get excited by cow elephants. They only get excited about angering some other bull elephant. And the best way to do this is by mating with the largest female in the herd. Elephants may or may not be a good example of feminism. Elephants also may or may not be a good example of realism. But for our purpose here today, let's remember that for most of Western history, nobody knew anything about the mating habits of elephants. Until about 200 years ago, in most of Europe, the elephant was a mythical creature, no more real than a unicorn, something that you had heard about in old legends. And a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend had once seen one on some improbable journey. Anyway, if we're going to explore the bizarre history of the elephant as role model, it'll only make sense if we remember that the elephant was only an ideal to people who knew nothing about them. 2,000 years ago, in the century when Jesus and the Caesars roamed the earth, the Roman scientist known as Pliny the Elder wrote, "The elephant has a religious respect for the stars and a veneration for the sun and moon. It is said by some authors," he wrote, "that at the first appearance of the new moon, herds climb down from the forest to a river and purify themselves in solemn form by sprinkling their bodies with water, after which, having saluted the heavenly moon, they return to the woods, carrying before them the young ones which are fatigued." Pliny does not name his source or claim to have witnessed this. And it would be reasonable to doubt whether he'd ever seen an elephant with his own eyes. And yet, he reported on one of the times when elephants were brought to Rome, there had been a great curiosity about them in Greece and Rome ever since Alexander the Great encountered elephants on his travels to India. Everybody wanted to see one. So Pompey Magnus, the politician, imported some elephants to battle in the Roman Colosseum, because this was the Roman way of appreciating novelty and diversity, getting drunk and watching exotic animals and abductees hack each other to death in the arena. Like modern Americans want to watch the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins clash in football arenas, but if we were Romans, we would find a way to get real dolphins and real bison to battle in a flooded Colosseum. Plus, we'd throw in some Panthers, Raiders, and Chiefs to make it interesting. Anyway, the citizens of Rome were really into watching all manner of barbaric cruelty between species, tigers, ostriches, every combination you could imagine, and Pompey thought the elephants would be quite a sensation in the Circus Maximus. But Pliny the Elder reports that when the elephants were caged near the Colosseum, they began crying, weeping, and the drunken Roman sports fans were so moved with pity and compassion that they rose up against Pompey, demanding that these animals be released. It was a singular, remarkable moment that these people who had so much bloodlust for every species imaginable would feel this inexplicable connection with this large, gray, stony-looking creature. I'm fascinated by these two moments. The Roman mob identifying elephants as fellow human beings, and the belief that of all animals, only elephants practice religion. This new moon baptism pilgrimage certainly does sound like a spiritual ritual, although it's presented as a regular monthly thing, and we don't get to ask Pliny's anonymous source whether this was really witnessed numerous times or just happened to happen once when someone was looking. But medieval Christians seized upon this as evidence that elephants are fellow Christians, although this would seem more like a Wiccan lunar goddess ritual, really, especially when we consider that adult elephants accompanied by babies would all be female. So it was more like a witchcraft Sabbath than a Sunday morning mass. And if elephants believe in a lunar goddess, would they envision her in human or elephant form? I would think, obviously, elephant. And if female elephants envisioned a holy trinity, I think that they would all be female. I don't think it would even occur to them to include a male in an elephant holy trinity. My personal faith in the moonlight pachyderm baptism is strengthened by the noted pattern that elephants never forget when and where their favorite fruit will ripen and ferment. And once a year when it does, they will travel great distances, stampeding at 25 miles an hour when the Borassus palm fruit ripens. They need to get there to the fruit before all the primates show up. The good news is they don't have to wait until the fruit begins to ferment, because their digestion process is so long that the fruit will actually ferment in their intestines. An elephant's belly is a portable wine barrel. If you put enough fruit in there, it'll actually turn itself into wine. Intoxicated elephants have been observed making lewd gestures with their trunks and ears, and making sounds normally associated with mating, but without a clear mating intention. In other words, of all of God's creatures, elephants tell dirty jokes. They're the only ones besides humans who do that. And their elephant friends just love it. And this is even more comical when we consider the recent scientific discovery that elephants can communicate in ultrasound frequencies that cannot be heard by the human ear. And this raises the question of whether this playful elephant obscenity was part of a performance lampooning the human observer. I don't know. A group of trained spectacle elephant performers with a cafeteria-style diet in their barn was once offered as part of an experiment. They were offered an optional ration of ale, and unsurprisingly, these circus elephants became alcoholics, guzzling 7 liters with dinner each day. That is approximately 35 cans of beer. It was then found that when tipsy, they would stagger around. One of them wrapped his trunk around himself obscenely, delighting the others. And when their handler commanded them to walk in a straight line, each clutching the other one's tail with his trunk, they couldn't take it seriously. They just fell apart in elephant laughter. Anyway, early Christians seized upon Pliny's description of the moonlight baptism to trumpet the belief that of all non-human animals, only the elephant is capable of religion. Being Christians, they assumed this must mean that elephants were Christians too. Although we don't know if elephants would imagine like elephant Jesus. The belief in elephant baptism went hand in hand, or tail in trunk, with the knowledge of elephant burial. The elephant burial ground seems to be a mythical thing, but elephants in the wild do pick up some vegetation and lay it over a deceased friend or relative. So they do practice a sort of burial. That's an act that cannot be explained in terms of subsistence or reproductive success. It's not a survival strategy. So I do have to wonder what's on the elephant's mind. An elephant's mind, I just learned, weighs about 11 pounds, which is 4 times the weight of a human brain. Medieval bestiaries, which were popular zoology books with a mix of factual and fantastical animals, claimed that elephants remember the location of the Garden of Eden and still use it as their secret mating ground. Throughout Western civilization, humans seem to feel a special bond with the elephant. Like I said, primarily humans who've never encountered one in the wild. Boreas Sachs wrote that elephants strike a responsive chord in us because they mirror our sense of alienation from the natural world. This is the creature whose nose is a tentacle with a sort of hand at the end of it. Clearly, the existence of this creature is evidence of something playful in the mind of some creator or in the chaos of mutations. Or maybe the elephant was designed by 5 blindfolded people who are still trying to figure out what it is. I wondered this morning, am I really going to get up here and just say a bunch of stupid things about elephants? But then it occurred to me, if it wasn't for some guy named Snodgrass saying something stupid about elephants, I never would have been born. See, how did I not come up with that until I was here? We are, I left my program over there, but I believe that we're about to sing another song.
Love will guide us, peace has dried us, hope inside us, will lead the way. Greed to giving, love will guide us through the hard nights. If you cannot sing like the angels, if you cannot, love will guide us. Love will guide us through the hard nights.
Do we have any announcements today? Well, I am excited to announce that in about a half hour, I will be teaching an adult education session. We're going to continue looking at life in Galilee in the first century at the time of Jesus, and some of the things that he said, and what people, how people would have understood that at the time. I'm also excited to announce that when I was doing my research about elephants this week, there was so much stuff that I'm going to do that someday I'm going to do a whole other sermon with more silly things about elephants, because I didn't get to do any of the African or Indian stories about elephants today. I thought today I'm just going to talk about elephants from the perspective of people who have never seen them. So I'm excited about that. Together we have sanctified this space. If you have found strength and comfort here, share some out there. Remember that you are a blessing, you are blessed, and you are not alone. Please join me for the words of extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
So as soon as I saw that it was going to be about elephants, the first thing that popped into my head, I said, I think way back when for one of my exam pieces, there was a Goofy Elephant song, and I thought, I wonder if I still have it. And so I do. But this was some 45 years ago. So who knows what could happen. Once there was tried to use the telephone. No. I mean an elephant who tried to use the phone. Dear me, not certain quite that is quite right. However it was, he got a trunk entangled in a telefunk. The more he tried to get it free, the louder buzzed the telephone. I fear I'd better